record on the screen. All right, it's just gonna be
We'll make do. We'll make do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how well you guys are gonna be able to see this because it's kind of dark.
That's okay.
It's
We can-
okay.
if you share it with us, we can also send it out too.
I sent an email.
Oh, okay, perfect.
So it should be on there, but it's mainly just to help me guide my thoughts too, because we can just kind of be a little casual, like little like chat more than a formal presentation. But I'm Jamie Little. I'm a physical therapist, doctor of physical therapy. I went to SDSU for both my undergraduate. So like you guys, I was a kinesiology pre-PT major. That was pretty nice if your goal are all of you trying to go to PT school. Awesome. All right, this will be very relevant. It was very convenient to be a pre-PT major. Are you all pre-PT or is somebody something else?
Yeah.
Cool. Like I knew people who were like psych majors or bio majors, but then you have to like really work all the prereqs into your schedule. So for anyone who might be on Zoom, it's not impossible. You could still get admitted with a non-kinesiology pre-PT as long as you have all the prereqs. But the pre-PT course is pretty efficient. It's an efficient way to do it. And it prepares you well for the program. So I graduated in 2017, undergrad, and then I went straight into PT school. No right or wrong, taking a gap year, taking a few gap years, not taking a gap year, not getting in the first round and applying another year, all sorts. There was, in my program, it was all sorts of people. Like there was one person who graduated in 3 years and came in straight away and they were like, oh, she's like only 20. It was like, I guess she was like the youngest person at that time to ever go through SDSU's program. So no right or wrong there. Do whatever is best for your life and your situation. But I went straight in. I liked it because I was still in the school zone. I was still like, I hadn't stopped. So a little bit easier to roll in. I had a summer. Now I believe SDSU starts in June, their DPT program. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's another consideration. I mean, on one hand, it's nice because I know anatomy comes first. And clinical anatomy, like undergrad anatomy, I thought was crazy. Like that's a crazy class, and clinical anatomy is no different. It's like a lot of information. So I think what they did is they moved that into the summer. So on one hand, it's like you start earlier, so you don't get your summer. That's kind of a bummer. But on the other hand, it spreads everything out a little bit more. Because otherwise that first semester is a little bit of an extra doozy as you're getting used to like the grad school load. So whether you go to SDSU or not, it's just something to consider, you know. You may or might not have options depending on where you get in. It's so competitive, but again, no right or wrong, just whatever works with your schedule in life. So that's kind of my educational background in terms of physical therapy experience. I've done a lot of things in a short amount of time. Right off the bat, when I graduated, we were in peak COVID. So like everything was shutting down. So outpatient clinics were like not really hiring in full time or anything. So I ended up in skilled nursing right off the bat. So if anyone doesn't know what a skilled nursing facility is, so you go to the hospital for like heart attack, stroke, you fall, break your hip, and you're not safe to go home. So maybe you still need help to walk and you live alone. So like you can't go home. They will send you to skilled nursing. So you'll see people in skilled nursing anywhere from a week to like 3 months. And you see people with everything, every body system, ortho, cardio, pulm, neuro. So that was actually kind of a good place to end up right out of grad school because you use all of your knowledge. Like it keeps everything really fresh. Because like you don't know if you're going to see a hip replacement or if you're going to see a stroke, or if you're going to see somebody who had a stroke and fell and broke their hip and then got a hip replacement. So it was a pretty cool way to start off. Hospital would be similar where you see a bit of everything. The big difference with a hospital would be that you're only seeing people for like, I don't know, maybe 3 days before you're making a discharge decision. Like hospitals are expensive, so insurances don't like to keep people there. So you tend to see them very briefly. You get an idea, are they safe to go home? Are they not safe to go home? What kind of equipment would they need if they go home? And then you either send them home or you recommend that they go to a SNF. And then they end up in the SNF. Then from there, they could end up home health PT. You could be a home health PT. That's another one where you'd see a lot. As a new grad, I had classmates who did it. but you're kind of out on your own. So you just want to make sure you're with a company that has some sort of mentorship program, just so you have somebody to bounce ideas off of. Since you wouldn't be in like a clinic setting where there'd be other therapists there, you go into the home solo. So it's not wrong, like people did it and they like it. A lot of companies do offer mentorship, but you just want to, in your interviews and stuff, when you get down to that point, if you're considering home health, that would be something to think about. And then after home health, they might be going outpatient. I never worked in outpatient ortho. I had a clinical in it. Wasn't for me. But my other experience is outpatient pediatrics. So I worked in a clinic with kids. I found that working in the clinic with kids was kind of hard because it's really hard to keep them focused and they're just bouncing around the clinic and you're just trying to kind of be like, do you want this puzzle? Do you want this ladder? Again, it's nothing wrong. Like there's a lot of people who love it and thrive, but I had a hard time. So that's what got me into the community-based pediatrics, which is surf and turf, which I think you've already had Dr. Jillian talk with you guys. Yeah, so that was a great fit for me because instead of trying to be like, what is this kid motivated to do? They're motivated to come surfing, and then we can do all of our physical therapy interventions in the form of surfing and an activity that they're really motivated to do and really bought into. So you spend less of your time trying to get that buy-in and more of your time actually getting to do your physical therapy, like working on your physical therapy goals. So, yeah, in terms of surf and turf, I run the San Diego chapter. We're small. We're in the water Thursday afternoons and Saturday mornings. We see a variety of diagnoses, autism, Down syndrome, cerebral palsy, Angelman's, which is a rare one, rare chromosomal disorder. And then I have another rare chromosomal disorder that the name is like a string of numbers and letters. Like not even, it's so rare, it's not even like
a name.
Yeah, it doesn't have like Angelman's or, it's just, it's code, which I don't remember off the top of my head, but so it's interesting, it's fun. But you've already heard a lot about surf and turf, but that's just kind of my role down here. Down here, the waves are a little bigger and more unruly. So sometimes we go to the bay or sometimes we go to a park if it's rained and we have like water quality concerns. So we bounce around and I just kind of use the environment to help structure my treatments, which is a lot of fun. But then sometimes you're dealing with the environment like rain, windy, cloudy days. Yeah. The sunny days are awesome. And then some days you're kind of shivering in the ocean. But other things I do early intervention, which is another form of pediatrics. That's 0 to 3-year-olds. So it's a government funded program where if a kid has like a 25% gross motor delay, their doctor can refer them. And then it's all paid for and covered by California. And it's in-home. So I go to the families' homes and work with the babies. We just work on gross motor milestones. They may or may not have a diagnosis. Some gross motor delays are just general unspecified, and then some are attached to something like Down syndrome or cerebral palsy. And if anything's not clicking, just interrupt me and I can just interject anytime. And then my last bit of physical therapy experience is I started being adjunct faculty at the Mesa PTA program. So in the fall, I'll be teaching their modalities course. That's like, you guys have heard of like electrical stimulation and ultrasound. And to be quite honest, I don't actually use any of it in my practice, but that was the class that was available and I wanted to get my foot in the door teaching. So I'm gonna take a crack at it. And then they have a pro bono clinic that's similar to your fitness clinic. Smaller, but they have that they run out of their lab, and I am a supervising therapist in the pro bono clinic. So as a PT, you get lots of options. There's a lot to do. If you're tired of one thing, you can very easily pivot to another thing. There are always jobs. Like, even if you start out, you don't get like your dream job. Like once it opens up, it's very easy to pivot and move around and get new opportunities. Like everyone needs physical therapists like desperately. So you will have no problem getting employed. So what did I do in undergrad? I thought I'd tell you guys kind of what I did and like what schools I got into and didn't get into. So you have a baseline for like what's a successful applicant look like. I did not get in everywhere I applied, but I did get into a few places. So I did get to choose SDSU, which was nice. My volunteer hours and work experience, I volunteered in an outpatient ortho clinic. And then I also worked at their front desk. So it's kind of interesting. Like, I know you guys are all probably like trying to get aid jobs, which makes sense, but keep an open mind. When I got called about the front desk opportunity, I was kind of like, it's not an aid. I don't know. But you're still in the clinic. You're still like around physical therapists. You can still get letters of rec from them. And you learn a lot about insurance and scheduling. And that has been very helpful in my career to have already been introduced to it in that way. Because you do have a big responsibility, even as a treating physical therapist, like to know your patient's coverage and to know you're not going over. I mean, if you work in a clinic, a lot of times you have somebody like at the front desk helping you, but it's still, you still have to know and like how to bill and all this stuff. So, and it still looks good on an application. So keep an open mind. If, you know, it doesn't have to be only aid, if you can get some other job in a clinic. I don't know how competitive everything is these days, probably.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of options in the area though, which is
That's
good. You
nice.
just have to reach out, and it helps to have a car. I think is a big.
Oh yeah, if you have to stay, I guess, or the trolley,
Yeah.
be on the trolley line. But yeah, the public transit situation in San Diego leaves some to be desired. I was an aide in an outpatient pediatrics clinic. All the 8 jobs I got, I was a volunteer first. So that's another way to get your foot in the door, is like go and volunteer, get some volunteer hours, and then, you know, positive attitude, big smile when you're wiping those tables and doing the laundry and folding the towels. And when they have an opening, a lot of times they'll go to their volunteers first to see if they want the ones they like, at least, you know. You got to like be on time and be professional and do a good volunteer job. And then that could be another way to get an aid job. So I worked there. I got just volunteer hours in a hospital SNF combo up at Palomar. Those are, I don't know if it's still pretty hard to get slots in a hospital. I would plan ahead and I would try your best to get some volunteer hours if you can. I know some schools require inpatient experience, even volunteer experience, aid, whatever. Not all of them require it, but it does look good. And for the ones that require it, obviously you're going to need it. And there's some, at least when I was going through it, there was like month-long wait lists and you kind of had to wait your turn. So it's worth like getting your application in, and then being pretty motivated to make the schedule work when they call.
A question. Do they look at hospital experience versus skilled nursing experience differently? Because I know they're both inpatient. Do they weigh them differently, or?
I wouldn't think so. I don't know too much because they are both inpatient and they just want inpatient experience. I think they just want you to have that experience of somebody who's living there overnight, all the lines, the diapers, the all that stuff. They want you to see the acuity too, like people who working with people who are really sick, versus if you're outpatient, people are more medically stable. I mean, by the time they get to the SNF, they're supposed to be medically stable, but a lot of times they're still pretty sick, pretty weak. Hospital, you may be working with people who are not medically stable, and you have to really know your vitals and like your safe ranges and all these things. So I think they want you exposed to that, because if you end up there, it's like you have to know that you would like to do that. I mean, even if thing is like I liked working in the SNF, but I knew it wasn't for me long term. So that's like what I was saying earlier, you might end up in one setting, working for a bit, getting some experience, and then pivot to another. You're never like locked in. But yeah, I would think either would be fine. Just to get that on your application. I was also a research assistant in the Applied Sensory Motor Lab. One day I just decided that I was going to email all the professors in ENS that had a lab, and 2 got back to me, and then that one ended up working out. I was able to get class credit for it, which helped with my registration time a little bit. I don't know if that's still, is that still like a pretty gnarly, yeah. So it's kind of nice to get you some extra credits to like bump you up. And then one summer I was able to get paid for it also as a research assistant. So that's another good option to get some experience. It also looks good. Obviously I know your guys' time's at a premium, but so it's hard to do it all, but that was a really good experience. And that's all I did one day. I was just like, hey, anyone need help in their lab?
Did you ever considering going just into research with PT, or were you more on the in-clinic side?
I still think about it sometimes, but I really don't want to go get my PhD. Once I got out of school, I was like, I am done with school. and I've been out, I guess it's been 4 years since I've been out, and there are certain things that I do. I'm like, oh, this would be a really cool research project. And I do go use my skills to look up stuff in the literature and research to guide my treatments. So like all those skills are valuable. And sometimes I'm like, ooh, I would love to do this research project, but I don't want to go back to school
Yeah.
personally. But it is very cool, and it does, like, you make a very broad impact if you're doing research, because if you find an intervention and you validate it in your research, or you set up the stage for future research to go and take it, and then that's what all of us are on PubMed looking up to see, if you have an interesting case or something like that, and all of a sudden the article comes up, then your reach is like international, really, because like all countries will be looking at it's published. Some person in Australia could benefit from what you did here. So it's a cool career path, but at this point in my life, not for me just yet. And then like extracurriculars, clubs I did. I was the founding treasurer of Aztec Adaptive Sports. So you guys are awesome for keeping it going. I did that. I was in FPTO, although I admit I was not the most like active member. I just was kind of in it. And then I was on the ski and snowboard team. So even non-PT related extracurriculars are good. Like the PT schools do want to know that you have hobbies outside of like just physical therapy. You don't like live and breathe physical therapy. You probably like to do something else. And they do like that, to see that you're well-rounded. So like even in one of my interview questions at NAU, they said, tell us something unique about yourself that has literally nothing to do with physical therapy. And so even there's like, a rock climbing club, or like a music club, or literature club, or I'm trying to think of all the various hobbies that you could be into. It is worth, checking it out for a semester and seeing if you like it and looks good on an application as well. Because keep in mind, variety is probably more important. So, of the volunteer experience, variety is probably more important than your total hours. They probably want to see that you've been in more settings than doing like 500 hours in one setting. And I just pulled 500 out of thin air. I don't know what they're asking for these days. I mean, the more the merrier, obviously, but like, it's probably better to do more variety than just go into one. And then essays will ask you about how you, at least when I was applying, a bunch asked about how I helped underserved populations. So Aztec Adaptive Sports is a good one. And then this is where I'm going to put in my plug to come volunteer for Surf and Turf in San Diego. Thursday afternoons, Saturday mornings, and I might be adding a Monday afternoon for the summer. You would need a car probably, because I don't think you can really get to Tourmaline without a car. So that would be I guess you could, but it would be a mission. Yeah.
For your volunteers, I know Jillian had said that she likes to have like 3-month commitment. Do you have similar policies for?
I am a little more relaxed on it, only because down here I need volunteers to do it safely. Up there, the wave is a lot more gentle, so it's a little safer to do it one-on-one. But with how the waves are down here, I have to have at least one volunteer. So my strategy has been to cast a wide net and get a lot of interested people, and get a lot of people cleared. And then even if you want to come for a month, or if you can come most Saturdays, but not every Saturday, I don't really want once every 3 months for somebody to decide. Like the intent has to be a little more consistent than that. But it's like, if you're like, oh, well, every other Saturday I see grandma, or something, like that's fine. Or like usually on Thursdays I'm free, but my work can call me in at any time, like that's fine. Or if you're like, I have the next month and a half and I'd love to do it, or I want to do it over summer, but then I'm going home for part of summer. Like for me, that's fine, just because the nature of our program, the logistics of our program are just a little different. So for me, it's better to have more people on board, even if they can't come every day, than to have less. Because if I only had one that was like locked in, what if they go on vacation? Then I have like nobody, So yeah, even if your schedule isn't perfect, I tend to be flexible, especially I know you guys are college students, so like you probably go home on your breaks. You have finals and you need like sometimes you're like, you know what? It'll distract me. And sometimes it's like, It'd be too much.
Yes.
I cannot come today. I do acknowledge that I am not paying you.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Mhm.
So if you're interested, you can always go, you have to go to like our surfandturftherapy.org website. I'm sure Jillian talked about it. You register to volunteer through there, and then once you're cleared, I get an email that you're cleared, and then I contact you directly to work out the ins and outs of the schedule.
And you were saying the surface is a little rougher down here. Do you require that people be well versed in water versus do you still have some volunteers on land or in the shallower end? Because I know Jillian talked about lots of different roles.
Yeah, so for our program, we only really ever go waist deep because the waves are so much stronger. Like I don't go paddle out to the proper break because too much can happen. And we're too exposed. So we stay waist deep. So you basically have to be comfortable being waist deep. You have to be comfortable with getting splashed. You have to know that it's going to be cold sometimes. A wetsuit is highly, highly, highly recommended. Every single person who's tried to come and do it without a wetsuit shows up the next week with a wetsuit. So, but no, you don't have to be like super ocean competent or savvy. You just can't be afraid of the ocean. You know, there are people who are afraid of the ocean. I respect that. But then this big opportunity is not for you. You could stand on the sand and watch, but you're not going to get as much out of it. To be truthful, it's better if you can be person. Yeah.
As far as just volunteering, would you recommend some like new requirements for volunteer positions like BLS or lifeguard?
No, I mean it helps, but like I'm BLS certified. And to be honest, if something like that happened, God forbid, I probably wouldn't have any of my volunteers go, like I would handle the situation just because I'm the licensed professional on site. So no, you don't have to have any sort of prerequisites like that. I mean, it's nice. Like I have had some lifeguards, it's cool, but no, there's no, just be okay in the ocean and positive attitude. And that's it. All right. Any other questions about Surf and Turf?
Where are you guys based? Like in San Diego?
So for the most part, right now we're at Tourmaline,
Okay.
which is North PB. But that's just because the parking lot at Cardiff got wiped out by the storm and is not
Okay.
accessible. And accessibility is very important for our clients. So usually Thursday afternoons we're at Tourmaline, and then Saturday mornings we're up at Cardiff, which is even farther from here than Tourmaline. But for right now, because of the parking lot situation, we're all in Tourmaline. But we don't have an office or anything. Like I do all my admin from my couch. So or at the beach after the sessions or something like that. So yeah, that's where we are. Any other questions? Those are all good. Yeah.
How do you feel your work-life balance is with you doing all your like behind the scenes stuff at home or like not in an office? Like you don't have a traditional like 9 to 5 schedule or anything like that.
I like it that way. I manufactured it that way. When I was in the SNF, it was for me, it was kind of hard to just be in the SNF like all for an 8.5 hour shift. No one's gonna pay you for lunch these days. So 8.5 hour shift. It was long days. I felt like I never got to see the sun, even though I'd like try and take my patients outside and stuff. So that was for me. I like kind of having this hodgepodge. I also have the benefit of being able to use my husband's medical benefits. So that's a big consideration. Like before we were married, the SNF was great because I had benefits and I kind of you have to be full-time most places to get benefits. And then once we got married, I was like, oh, I can mooch off of you, and then I can kind of do more of this patchwork of a career. So I like it. And I like that I do my admin at home. Because personally, like my dogs will be cuddling with me. And if I want a snack, or I'll have my whatever show on in the background. And, you know, it's just kind of nice for me. But some people like the clinic environment because then you have all these therapists around you doing your documentation. You're like chatting with your coworkers. And, you know, my patchwork stuff, like I get paid per client. So I have a ton of flexibility. Like I'm here on a Friday afternoon with you guys. Before I was here, I went surfing. Like I have a ton of flexibility. However, when my patients or clients cancel, I don't get paid. Versus when you're in a clinic, you know, if you're working 9 to 5:30 in a clinic and you have all these appointments back to back and your 10 a.m. cancels, like you're not going to not get, you know, paid most likely. You're going to, so it's give and take. And it just depends on what you like and what you need out of the job, not just the job, but potentially benefits and like retirement plan and all that. So depending on where you are in life and what you need, then, but the good news is there's tons of options. So you can kind of, it's a very flexible job in general, in terms of like what kind of work structure you want. But I like it. I like going home and doing my notes at home. Sometimes it's a little hard to like stay focused, but I like to get to spend more time at home. Versus, or like then maybe I do my notes after dinner, but it's not like I was like in the clinic for 8 hours and then doing my notes after dinner. It's like, okay, I worked a little bit and then I went and chose to do other stuff and then sat down to focus on it. So that's what works for me. You guys are asking good questions. It's like kind of going into some of my future slides too. So that's good. If anything gets redundant, I'll just skip it. But I was going to talk a bit about applications. Any other questions about anything so far? Because you guys are all coming up on your applications. It sounds like you're close. Yeah, it's a lot. The applications. I don't know. I'm a planner. I'm not a procrastinator. So like I started early and I appreciated that I did. If you're a procrastinator and you're like, that's how you're able to get stuff done, then power to you. But it's a lot of information that they ask for, not just the essays. Like you have to like input all your classes, even though you're sending them a transcript. It's very tedious. And so like you have PT CAS. A lot of schools are on PT CAS. You all familiar with PT CAS? So you're like, great. It'll send all my information to them. I only have to put it in once. It's not really the case because they all have supplementals and a lot of the supplementals are really redundant. You're like putting it in all again, and then you have extra essays. There's like the PT CAS essay, but then all the supplementals want essays. So just because you have a PT CAS application, like say, I'm not thinking off the top of my head, like when I applied for University of Washington, they take PT CAS and then they have a whole supplemental. I think the only PT CAS school that didn't have a supplemental that I applied to was Chapman. And that is why I applied to them. So I was like, whatever, it's another $70, like for another, to throw my name in another ring. And like, I don't have to do any extra work. But a lot of them have supplemental applications and they can be pretty lengthy. So be prepared for that. Don't just think it's PT CAS and you're done. And then interviews, you might have to travel like on a dime. Like I remember for my NAU interview, they were like, interviews are this Monday at this time and see you there. And you're like, cool, like whatever to the rest of my life, you know? And so just be aware of that when you're applying. Like if you apply somewhere in New York and they have in-person interviews, you may at very short notice be flying to New York and needing to get a hotel and pay for that flight. And so just think financially and schedule wise, like as you're picking where you want to apply, some of my volunteers for surf and turf, they're like, can't come anymore because I just got an interview, which is awesome, but I have to be in, you know, forever. So just be aware of that. SDSU, when I applied and last I heard, it's still its own application. I don't think they have any essays if they still do the video. So that's kind of nice, but then know that not every school's on PT CAS, so then you might have to be doing like separate. So just like have a plan so that you don't start and all of a sudden go, oh my God, this is like, the essays and the video are probably the hardest part because that takes like actual thought. The rest of it is just tedious inputting all of your information like over and over and over again. You start to like memorize your transcript a little bit, depending on how many places you apply. But yeah, it's just like going through that whole thing. It can take some time, especially if you're applying like in a semester where you also have classes and stuff like that. The GRE, from what I have heard, for the most part, you just need to focus on getting the minimum score for admission. So I wouldn't like, if you get whatever the highest minimum score is for whatever schools you're applying to, if you get that, I would not waste your time taking it again and paying to take it again. Like, don't be like, oh, well, I could have done better. It does. You can if you want, but I don't, from what I have heard and how it was when I applied, as long as you hit that minimum, nobody's really like, I'm so glad you did so good on the GRE. You know, the other parts of your application are a lot more important. I mean, the degree is expensive. So, and so at the bottom, I just put grades are important. They are. You need a good GPA. Like you're not going to get in with a low GPA. But being a diverse candidate is probably the most important. So think about your observation hours, your aid experience, potentially your volunteer experience, whatever clubs you're in. You guys all being here is a great for club experience. Like, it's hard. Make sure you're doing a lot of stuff in addition to getting good grades. I remember being where you guys are at. It's no easy. It's not easy. But I wouldn't just be a bookworm. Like, it's important to have these other experiences, even even if it means to get like a B+ in a classroom, like that, So PT school program considerations, like, of course, I stayed at SDSU for everything. I loved it. I would highly recommend it. If you get in, I think it's a great program. It's as inexpensive as it gets, even though it's still quite an expense, but you're not getting around that in this profession. But I really liked my experience here. I felt very prepared for the boards. I felt very prepared to go start my career as much as you can when you're like, stepping into the clinic for the first time as an actual PT. It's kind of scary no matter what. But I think SDSU did a really nice job, and it is a good price, which is one of my double exclamation point tuition on here. So the big things you want to look at is make sure it's accredited. This sounds obvious, but like, if it's not accredited, you're not gonna be able to take the boards, you're not gonna be able to do anything. And if it's in the process of being accredited, like SDSU they have to go, new programs have to go through like a year or two of not accredited with full classes. It might be a little easier to get in, so that might be a good thing. And then when they get accredited, you're all good to go. But if they don't, you're kind of in a pickle. I do think if that happens, they have like placement programs, like put you in a program that is accredited and you can finish it out and things like that. But
That's interesting.
yeah, it does happen where you could be like, oh, this program's in the process of getting accredited. Like, if you get in and that's a place you get in and everything else works out, it might be worth the risk, but it is a bit of a risk. So just make sure. There's a bunch of different timelines that programs are on: 2-year accelerated versus 3-year versus like 3.5-year. The 2-year accelerated programs are tempting. They have like online ones too these days coming out. I don't really have a super huge opinion about the online because they make you fly out to do a bunch of in-person stuff. So like, I don't know that you lose anything necessarily. I can't really comment on that too much because it's all that's kind of new. But the 2-year accelerated, I will tell you, they tend to have lower board passage rates because it's so fast and it's so much information that you may not be, the information might not sink in deep enough to be ready for the boards, because the boards will ask you some bizarre questions. Like, it's not like, hey, what's innervated at C5? It's not straightforward like that. Like, you have to really know the information. So like, even though it could be tempting, like, oh, I'm out in 2 years, just proceed with caution. It might be the right fit for you. You might have no problem. People do them. They pass the boards. They're great therapists. It's just fine. But just think about it, would be my caution. And then the 3 years is like the traditional. And then a number of them do 3.5 now to spread it out a little more. I said, I was glad I got my summer, but it does make your life a little bit more tolerable. that first semester, especially. And then tuition. I'm always telling people this. No disrespect to like USC or whatever other expensive private institutions are out there. I'm sure their program is fantastic. No one has literally ever asked me where I went to school in a job interview. It's on my resume, sure, but nobody's been like, nobody cares. It's never not gotten me a job. It never has gotten me a job. Like, don't think like, oh, I got into USC, so like, I'll get a better job. They'll tell you that. Unless you want to do something like really crazy, like, I don't know, maybe if you want to be like the Dodgers PT or something, maybe it'll help you. But if you just want to do like a normal physical therapy job, and there's a lot of them, nobody cares. One of my bosses was like, didn't you go to St. Augustine? I worked for like 1.5 years. I was like, no, I didn't. So if you only get into an expensive place, it's still worth it, but it's just you don't need to like the rankings and all that stuff. It's all very competitive amongst all the PT programs, but I got to tell you, as a clinician, like, none of us care. And like, hiring people, like, they just care if your license is valid and if you're like in the interview, if it's like a good fit and everyone's getting along. So I would put tuition at the top of your list and go to the cheapest place, because the loans are gnarly. And we make good money, but we don't make medical doctor money. Okay. So like it is a chunk. And so don't get like enamored by the, I don't know, some of the like, oh, it's the #1 program. It's going to cost me $400,000. Like if you want to go do it, but the cheaper programs are just fine and will set you up just fine and then won't be as intense of a financial burden when you're out. So, and you will get a job once you're licensed somewhere. Like the job market is great. So my PT school experience, how are we on time? Are you guys good? Okay. Be prepared to be really busy. I don't know if you've heard this before. Everyone likes to say this. It's like drinking water out of a fire hose. And they're right. When they tell you that, they are correct. It is like, it's a lot. It's a lot of information. It's very fast. They expect you to know it well, know it in all sorts of forms. Like you'll get written exams, you'll get practical exams, you'll have presentations, you'll have, so practical exams, like you pull a scenario and it's like a patient scenario and you've got to just like do what you would do for your treatment. So it's not just like, oh, okay, I can regurgitate this on a test, or I could regurgitate this in a free response, or like I could research it and write an essay about it, or make a presentation about it, although you will be doing all those things also. Then you have the practical exams. I mean, there were times we had like 10 exams in the course of 4 days, you know, so it's doable. It is doable. We all do it. We get through it, but it's gnarly. Like it's a lot on your plate. It's a lot of time. It's a huge commitment. Like it's not impossible to work while you're in PT school, but it is hard. You need a flexible job. I was a dog sitter, dog walker. So like in between classes, I'd be going and like walking a dog. And then I'd like stay at people's houses overnight and watch a dog. So that was nice because I could study or whatever. So that worked out really nicely. For me, I did have classmates who were like doing waiting jobs or like waitresses, waiting. I don't know, is that how you say it? But yeah, worked at restaurants. And so people did work, but it's hard. So you just have to be prepared to be like, you know, the stereotypical broke grad student. And so yeah, the written practical exams at SDSU and a lot of programs will also have you do like a research project. So you'll go and collect the data and write up like your own article. Sometimes you can get published in these. So that's kind of cool. But it's another thing. And then you'll have clinicals. So when you're not doing like your full-blown classes, you're in clinicals, and the clinicals are 40 hours a week. You work the hours your CI works. It's not like, oh, you go in there for 3 hours, like a volunteer shift or an aid shift. Like you work that whole day. And then you're expected to like go home. And if there's stuff you need to brush up on from school or whatever, like then you need to be doing that on your own time. The CAPD standards, CAPD is like the accrediting board for all the PT programs. I looked this up to make sure it was still right before I brought this to you guys. It's 30 weeks of clinicals minimum. So you get a lot of clinical experience. You'll have to go to different settings in your clinicals. So like, even if you go into PT school and you're like, I want to be outpatient ortho, that's all I ever want to do. You're still going to have to take pediatrics. You're still going to have to take neuro. You're still going to have to take all those classes. And then you're still going to have to go do a hospital clinical or something like that. Because you have to get a variety of experiences in order to graduate. By the end of your last one, your CI has to grade you entry level in order to graduate. That's not usually a problem by the time you're all the way there. Haven't really heard of people that have too hard of a problem with that. And you may have to travel for your clinical placements. So that's another thing to be aware of. I had my final one, pediatrics, all set up here in San Diego, and like 3 weeks before they pulled it. And so all of a sudden I was scrambling, and then I ended up moving to Orange County, which was awesome. But I was going to live at home. I was going to have no expenses. And then all of a sudden I guess I could have commuted to Orange County, but that would have been brutal. So moved up to Orange County, kind of like with 3 weeks notice. That was kind of a unique situation. You usually have more notice if you have to travel. You'll like have it planned out in advance. It'll be like, you might be like, hey, I love the hospital. And they'll be like, oh, we have a great hospital. Like I chose to go to San Francisco for one of mine because I just thought it would be cool and it was a good hospital experience. And, but it's it's a cool, kind of cool because you just get to go like dip your toe into living somewhere else for a little bit. But it's an expense, and even if you want to try and stay, like if you have family or other considerations here, sometimes programs will take that into account. But you still may have to go because the slots are where the slots are. So just be aware of that. Some people like it, some people don't. I'll go over the boards just real quick because that's kind of like really far in your future, and you'll get it a lot once you're in PT school. But there's the National Physical Therapy exam that you have to pass. They changed this too. You get 6 chances. Back in my day, you only got 3. Yeah, and I had a friend who was like on the 3rd one, and he was very nervous, but he passed. He got it. But so now you get 6 lifetime chances, which is like a way bigger cushion. That's pretty nice. You can take it 3 times a year. That's the NPTE, National Physical Therapy exam. Then you also have to take a jurisprudence exam, which is California physical therapy laws. So it's not just that exam, you also have to take the jurisprudence, which you go to a testing center, but you take it on a different day than your board. So it's not very hard. That one's very straightforward. But you have to like read the law book, which is, or like pay for a law study guide, and do that. So there's that. I would highly recommend spend the money, purchase the study books, purchase the practice tests. It's the best way to be prepared, the practice tests especially. I like totally bombed my first one, and then I was like pretty comfortably passing by the time I took 3 or 4. So like just getting to know how they ask the questions, and you gotta like sit yourself in your room for like 5 hours to do it, but it's kind of brutal, but it's worth it because then like it made a big difference for me. Like I've always been very studious. I've got pretty good grades in grad school, but I just tanked my first practice test. So the practice helps, and then make a study plan and stick to it. That's probably good for PT school when you get there, and for the boards. It's a ton of information, like because the boards is on literally everything. It's not like you get to say, well, I only want to do neuro, so I'm just gonna like specialize in neuro. Like you have to pass for everything. So it's a lot of information, but again, it's doable. Like once you're there, you've like gone through the program, you've gone through your clinicals. You just have to like stick to being kind of like diligent through that home stretch. It's kind of hard after you graduate. You have that like high of graduating, and then you're like, okay, gotta sit back down now and study for the boards. But then you're a physical therapist, and life as a physical therapist is pretty good. I'm very happy with the career. I would not do anything else. I would not go back and do anything else. I will go over some of the cons in here. It's not, no job is, 100% wonderful, but as we've talked about, there's tons of jobs in various settings. So like you'll never be bored. If you get bored, you can just go work in a different setting, and then you'll be all like having to kind of like relearn stuff or redo things. And there's always new research coming out, and there's always weird patient presentations that keep you on your toes. Even once you feel like you've got a setting down, all of a sudden you get this person where you're like, that's interesting. Let me go look into that and try some new things. So it's a fun job, keeps you on your toes. It can be very flexible. Like my schedule's very flexible. Some places less flexible. When I worked at the SNF, I was the only physical therapist, and then I supervised 2 physical therapy assistants. So it was a little less flexible because I had to be there, like holidays and stuff. Like your patients have to hit their frequency, so like you have to be there. So depending on your job, it's not as necessarily as flexible as I have it, but it can be very flexible, and the flexibilities you get to choose, kind of what you want, what you're looking for when you're looking for a job, because like, don't be afraid to negotiate a little bit. As a new grad, it might not necessarily be for pay, but for schedule, for certain hours, for mentorship, ask for this stuff. Because a lot of times you'd be surprised how much they're able to work with you. Like when I worked at the SNF, I asked if 2 days a week I could only work 6 hours, so that then I could work in outpatient pediatrics in the evenings, because that was what I really wanted to do. And they were like, sure. So don't be afraid to ask. It's a very social job, so that can be a pro and a con. If you're a really social person, really extroverted, it's great. I like to call myself like an extroverted introvert. So like I love my patients and clients and their families, but you're chatting and how's your day and what's going on, and like you're doing that. on repeat all day. So like for me, when I get home, my social battery's like out. If you're a really social person, it won't be, but just keep in mind, it's like, it's very social and you're building rapport with your patients. So you can't really like not be interested in their lives and like what's going on. And they want you to share, they want to know you too. And so it's like, it is very social. So just know that about yourself. And then burnout. And it can be emotionally taxing, especially if really sick patients or if like patients are dying. Like, that's a reality, especially depending on certain settings. People who will pass, or, for me, like I work with some kids who are really, really delayed or don't have, a great prognosis overall. So that side can be emotionally taxing. And those two things together, especially, can lead to burnout. Certain jobs can be very demanding and how much they stack your schedule, and that can lead to burnout. So that's probably the big con, is the potential for burnout, but there are a lot of ways to protect yourself from it. Make sure that you end up, even if you can't get there right away, you end up in a setting that you really love, that really motivates you. Make sure you get a schedule that reflects like how you like to work and how you like to structure your day. Take your vacation time, use that PTO, so you can, like, I would say I don't, in the SNF, I got kind of burnt out. But in my current job, I don't. So my current jobs, I don't so much. So like, it's possible. You just have to find the right fit for you, and like, don't stop or settle until you find that right fit, because it's out there, especially in this profession that's so flexible and so many options. And you can kind of insulate yourself from the potential for burnout. You have continuing education and license requirements. You have to get like 30 con eds every 2 years. It's pretty straightforward. It's pretty easy. And then you have to pay like $300 every 2 years to renew your license. So like medical doctors, I learned, have to take a boards every 10 years. So like, thank God you don't have to do that. Yeah. Like, you just pass it the one time and do your continuing ed, and you do your license, you pay your dues, and it's pretty straightforward. It's not a huge demand. And a lot of times, like, I'll have something that I realize I need to work on. Like, in kids, it was these reflex patterns and integrations that you'll all learn about in time, but I wasn't really confident in treating it. So I was like, oh, I'll just do a con ed in it. So it's kind of natural. It almost happens kind of naturally, to get that. So you're like, I want to learn about this anyway, so I might as well get some of my units done. But it's an extremely rewarding career. Extremely, extremely rewarding. A lot of fun. Like, when your patients are doing well, it's like the best thing ever. Really fills your cup. So it's definitely, all the stuff that's hard and kind of stressful and crazy about it is very worth it. Very, very worth it. And I think that's it. I think I just have thank you and questions
I have
now.
a question.
Yeah.
So you said when you have patients that present with like interesting symptoms, I don't know if that's right, symptoms, how do you deal with that? Is that a chunk of your own time, kind of researching, looking at articles?
Yeah, it will be. So, at a certain point, things start to fall into some patterns, and you start to get pretty good at picking them up and treating them. But then all of a sudden, it's like this intervention that you usually use for this presentation all of a sudden isn't working. It's like, And I'm a believer that, like, if it's not working, that's on me. That's not on the patient, right? Like, if some intervention I'm delivering, or some cue I'm using, or some sort of instruction I'm using isn't working, it's on me to modify that and change it so that it works for my patient. So yes, I will go home and I'll be like, like, a recent one, I have 2 kids on my early intervention caseloads, that's 0 to 3, who all of a sudden have these like vision issues popping up. And I don't really know a lot about that. OTs do, and you can refer them to like developmental ophthalmologists, but I was like, let me go see what kind of like vision therapy is out there. Luckily, one of my jobs will pay me 1 treatment unit to do an article review and share it with my coworkers. So a lot of times I'll do that. I'll just like I'll read the article, and then I'll just write up a little review and send it in. And so that's nice. And it's not too unusual to have jobs offer certain things like that, because they want you to be using research and they want you to be staying on top of it. So that's another thing you can look for when you're looking for jobs when you get there, is little kind of like quirky benefits like that. But yeah, it's on your own time for the most part. If you're in a clinic, then you can just a lot of times you can ask your other clinicians that are in there, and odds are one of them has had experience in it. But if you're kind of on your own like I am, then I go home and I spend a little bit of time, look stuff up for people and try it. Or sometimes it's like, this isn't in my scope, so you need to go talk to this person. Refer them to whoever a more appropriate medical professional would be.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Where were all of your clinical rotations? Like which settings did you have?
So my first one was at a skilled nursing facility, Jacobs, it's close to here, actually. And that was actually where I ended up getting hired for my first job. That was my San Diego State, at least back before they restructured the program to be 3.5 years, had a 6-week clinical in between your first and second year. And that was my 6-week one at Jacobs. And then I went to San Francisco, and that was acute rehab. So acute, it's very confusing because there's inpatient acute, and that's the hospital, okay? And then there's inpatient subacute, and that's the SNF. And then there's inpatient rehab or acute rehab. And that is like, it's a very specialized program, so only certain people qualify. You have to be able, I might botch these because it's been a while. You have to be able to tolerate 3 hours of therapy a day, and you have to have like very good rehab potential. So not everyone has good rehab potential. Like you could have a stroke that's really profound that kind of like makes it so that there isn't a very good chance that you'll improve very much, let's say. Or you could have one where however it landed, there is good chance for you to improve. So those people, and if they can tolerate 3 hours a day, it's in the hospital. It's a specialized floor on the hospital where it's very, very intense rehab. And it's very rehab focused. So other hospital floors, you might get like 20 minutes of therapy a day, PT a day. On the acute rehab, you'll get like an hour. And the minutes are very important. You do that whole hour and it's very intense, and they stay for like 3 weeks. And the goal is at the end of the 3 weeks, they're going home close to good as new, fairly independent. So I did that. And then I did outpatient ortho at Scripps up in Carmel Mountain. And then I did California Children's Services, which is another government-funded program for kids with neurologic diagnoses. They run them out of elementary schools. And so any kid with certain qualifying neurologic diagnoses will get free physical therapy through California Children's Services until they're 18. And so that ended up being my final like 16-week long clinical, although supposed to be 16 weeks, but then COVID hit. So it got cut halfway through. So that was interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
Question.
Yeah.
Regarding about licensing, I know you're talking about California laws.
Mhm.
How is it different from if you wanted to work like in Oregon or like Washington? Is the same applicable apply for like the boarding exams?
Yeah, I believe that they all have a jurisprudence exam, and then the specific laws will just vary a little. Like, I don't really know the ins and outs of the other state laws, but certain examples are in California, a physical therapist can supervise 2 physical therapy assistants at a time. Or like, honest to God, they ask this. You have to have your title on a name tag. Physical therapist is the title. It must say that. It must be in a certain size font that is easily readable by your patients. It has to be like they ask kind of down to, it's like stuff like that. So that might be a little, those details might be different in another state, but I think it's generally pretty similar. And then transferring your license, like if you move, you may have to go take a jurisprudence. Like if you start here and then you're like, we're going to move to Oregon, you might have to take the Oregon jurisprudence exam before Oregon's physical therapy board will approve your license. They say it's easy. California is one of the hardest ones to get. So if you take it here, it's easier to transfer from California than to transfer to California. But yeah, you can't, if you get your license in California, you can only treat California. With telehealth and everything, you have to be careful. Like you can't, everything has to be in California.
So you have to take, if you go to another state, like if I got my degree in like Colorado and then I come here and then I want to practice, I have to take another board exam or like.
So if you go to school in Colorado, but you know you're going to move back here, you will sign up for the boards here. So yeah, I don't believe that it matters where you go to school. It matters where you apply for your license to be. So you can go to school in Colorado and then you can go and you can come back here and take the NPTE, the National Physical Therapy Exam. That's the same across the country. That's standardized for everybody. But your application will say you want a California license, you'll take the NPTE, and then you'll take the California jurisprudence, and then you'll have a California license. Yeah, so it's not like if you go to school in New York, you have to get licensed in New York. It's, yeah.
It's like, what if you do end up moving long term?
You have to transfer your license. So you have to go through,
The boards again?
you don't have to take the NPTE again. You don't have to
'Cause
take the
that's
big,
for the country.
that's for the country, and that's one time you pass it, you're done for life. So nobody would ever move if you had to take that again, you know? But depending on the state, there will be different requirements for what you have to do to transfer the license. And it will likely include taking their jurisprudence. And then you might have to pay some fees, and you might have to, like, you know, you can't like commit any felonies. This might sound obvious, but it's like, you can't like, whoops, I got a DUI and try and, well, first of all, you have to report that to the California board. But if you try and transfer, they're gonna say no dice because you don't meet the like standards of the profession. So you do, you have to keep a clean record. They're watching, especially if you want to transfer. But yeah, they are watching, and you do have to report it. Like if you got into something, got tangled in something. So as long as you have a clean record and you can pass the jurisprudence, it might be kind of logistically annoying to have to transfer, but you can.
And you said the jurisprudence was like a lot easier to study for than, okay, so.
They sell, I can't speak to other states because I only ever took the California one, but I would imagine there's a business in everything, right? I'd imagine other states have a similar thing. You can buy a California jurisprudence physical therapy exam study guide. I think it was like $50. Best $50 you could spend because they know like all the stuff they're going to ask. And so they give you a nice consolidated study guide. They ask about like CEU requirements because it's kind of weird. You need 30, but like 4 of them are CPR and like 2 of them have to be law and ethics. And then it's kind of weird. And then there's like, if you're a CI, there's ways you can get CEUs and things like that. So they ask stuff like that, but the study guide has it all laid out very nicely and it's very straightforward. Like if you know that, you will pass very easily. There's no tricks. That one's not one to worry about. It's just like another thing that you have to pay for and you have to do. Yeah.
I know you're talking about the diversity, your kind of your applications and stuff. Do they really look at between like you as a volunteer versus you as a position?
No. I don't think that they put a whole lot of, because not everyone can get a paid position, right? So that's not really fair. I mean, to your guys' point, in San Diego, there's like tons of opportunities, but even then it's not like automatic that you're gonna be able to get one. So I would not stress about having to have it paid. It's convenient if it's paid, because then you're kind of killing 2 birds with 1 stone, right? But it does not have to be paid. I believe that if you just have a diverse volunteer profile, they will take that as happily as they take paid experience. The age just might be coming in with more hours because like that's probably the biggest benefit to the aid is not that it's paid. It's just that if you're getting paid, you're probably going to stay there longer. So then you're going to be able to say like, I have a year and a half, maybe, or a year of being an aide versus maybe shorter. But if you volunteered somewhere long-term, that would do it. That would look just as good, you know? Yeah, I'd say it's more about amount than role. That makes sense. Good questions. I don't really have a timeline. I know you guys might have class / want to do other things, but so don't be shy. If you have more questions, I'm happy to stick around. Or if you guys are feeling like, hopefully that was informative and and helpful. And then you guys have my email. So if you have any other questions, like doesn't have to be about surf and turf and doesn't have to be volunteering for surf and turf, although I'd love to have you. If you have any other questions, just as you work through the process and all of that, please don't hesitate to contact me